feel like you're richer or just surviving? Think about it for a second. You open your bank app, check your balance, and the number seems higher than it was 2 years ago. Sounds good, right? But then you go to the supermarket, and the shopping cart that used to cost $120 now costs over $200. You stop at a gas station and feel that stomachache. You try to book a weekend with a family, and the hotel that was reasonable now seems outrageous. You look at your electricity bill and can't believe what you're reading. You renew your car insurance and think there's been a mistake because the price has doubled. And at the end of the month, even though you're earning more than before, you wonder, where did the money go? This is not your imagination. This is not a lack of financial education. This is the inflation farce, working exactly as it was designed to work. A simple hamburger in New York City now costs over $35. An energy bill in Texas or California reached $500 in the summer. The average rent in the United States has risen more than 40% in the last 4 years. Car insurance has increased more than 20% in a single year. Health insurance continues to consume an ever-increasing slice of the salary. And the average American salary, it has grown, yes, but it has grown much less than all of this. And it is precisely this difference between what you earn and what everything costs that is silently eroding your quality of life every day. The question remains, are you truly improving your life, or are you running on a treadmill that accelerates faster than your legs can keep up? Today, we're going to talk about this with complete honesty. No euphemisms, no economists talk that only makes sense to those with an MBA. We're going to talk about the real cost of living in the United States, about how inflation works, like a tax that nobody voted for, about who benefits from this system, and about what you can do concretely to avoid being swallowed up by it. If you're new here, welcome. Subscribe to the channel now because we have this kind of conversation every week, straight to the point. No beating around the bush about real money and what's happening with the economy that affects your wallet every day. Now let's get down to business. While you were paying more at the supermarket, while you were renegotiating your rent, while you were cutting streaming subscriptions to make ends meet, while you were postponing buying a new car because you could no longer afford the payments, Wall Street was celebrating. The S&P 500 hit record highs. Major banks posted astronomical profits. Billionaires saw their fortunes grow by tens of billions in a matter of months. CEOs received bonuses that most people won't accumulate in a lifetime of work. And you know what's most disturbing about all this? These two worlds exist at the same time, in the same country, at the same historical moment. While you were calculating whether you could afford gas and still pay for groceries in the same week, someone on the other side of town was buying their third property as an investment using cheap credit that the Federal Reserve itself created. The market is going up, but your purchasing power is going down. This is no coincidence. This is structure. And to understand why, you need to understand what happened when the Federal Reserve printed trillions of dollars during the pandemic. This money didn't reach everyone equally. Some of it became stimulus checks, but most of it was absorbed by the financial system, by the markets, by assets, by real estate that large funds bought en masse, while families still had reduced income and no security whatsoever. Funds like Blackstone and Invitation Homes bought hundreds of thousands of homes in the United States during this period. Houses that would have been sold to middle-class families went straight into the portfolios of institutional investors who paid cash without negotiation, without emotion. The real estate market exploded. Rents skyrocketed. And the average American family, who already dreamed of owning their own home, saw that dream become increasingly distant, while large funds profited from renting it out. This is not a conspiracy theory. It is a fact reported by the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and discussed in hearings in the American Congress itself. And this has a technical name. It's called the Cantillon effect. The economist Richard Cantillon, in the 18th century, already described how when new money enters an economy, it first enriches those closest to the source, the banks, the large investors, the government, and only last, already eroded by inflation. Does it reach the hands of the average worker? 250 years later, This mechanism continues to function in the same way, only with much better computers, algorithms, and public relations to disguise what is really happening. So, when someone tells you that the American economy is doing well, that the numbers are good, that unemployment is low, the right question isn't whether the numbers are growing. The right question is, growing for whom? Because inflation doesn't affect everyone the same way. It affects those with less much more. Those with less spend a much larger proportion of their income on basic necessities, food, housing, energy, transportation, and healthcare. And it is precisely these categories that have risen the most in price in recent years. A person with $1 million in stocks barely noticed that meat became 30% more expensive. But a family that earns $50,000 a year and allocates 40% of its income to food and housing was devastated by this increase. This is what it means for inflation to be a tax on the poor. It's not a metaphor. It's a numerical reality. Now we're going to talk about numbers that directly affect your future. And I need you to pay attention here, because this isn't abstract. This is your retirement, your security, your assets. Imagine that in 2020, you had $100,000 in a savings account earning 1% per year. It seemed reasonable. Safe money, no risk. In 2022, official inflation in the United States reached 8.5% in a single year. Your $100,000, even with a savings account yield, lost purchasing power brutally. In real terms, you became poor without spending a penny, without doing anything wrong, just by keeping the money in the place that seemed safest. This is the invisible tax of inflation. It doesn't appear on your income tax return. The government doesn't send you a bill, but it charges you every month, every year, silently. And those who don't understand this mechanism pay without ever realizing they're paying. Let's talk about something very few people realize: the difference between nominal growth and real growth. Nominal growth is the number you see. Real growth is what that number represents in purchasing power. Did your salary go up 5% this year? Great. But if inflation was 6%, you lost 1% of purchasing power. You earn more dollars and can buy fewer things. That's a real income recession. And that's exactly what happened to most American workers between 2021 and 2023. Documented in data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics itself, the official U.S. government agency that measures this. And there's a point about real estate that fools a lot of people. Many people look at the value of their own house and think, I'm rich. They bought it for $300,000 in 2018. Today, it's worth $500,000. But let's do the honest math. First, you didn't realize that profit while living in the house. It's just a number on paper. Second, if you sell and want to buy another equivalent one in the same market, its value has also increased proportionally. So you haven't gained real estate purchasing power. Third, if you need the rent while looking for another property, the rent has also skyrocketed. The appreciation protected your assets against inflation, but it didn't make you richer in real terms. And this is especially devastating for those nearing retirement. Imagine someone who has accumulated $600,000 in the 401k and plans to retire. If, in the 2 years before retirement, the market falls by 40%, as happened in 2000 and 2008, that person wakes up with $360,000. That's no longer enough for the standard of living they've planned for decades. With inflation eroding the remaining value each year, the situation only worsens. And this risk has a name: sequence of returns risk. And it's one of the most real and least discussed threats for those building their retirement today. If this content resonates with you, leave a like now and comment below. Do you feel your salary is keeping up with the cost of living? I want to hear about your own experiences. Are you really getting richer, or just seeing bigger numbers on the screen while your life gets more expensive? History has shown this before, several times. In different places, with real people who lost everything because they believed that growing numbers meant growing wealth. Germany, 1921 to 1923. German hyperinflation destroyed everything families had built up in less than 2 years. People who had done everything right, who had been disciplined, who had saved their whole lives, woke up to discover that decades of savings couldn't even buy a loaf of bread. Literally, there are historical accounts of people carrying money in wheelbarrows to buy a single meal. The number on their accounts was enormous. Purchasing power was zero. Venezuela, 2010s. A country with one of the world's largest oil reserves. Inflation reached 1,000,000%. Doctors, engineers, university professors couldn't afford basic food. Not because they spent poorly, not because they made the wrong choices, but because the system they trusted collapsed and took the value of everything they had built with it. You're going to tell me that the United States is different? That the dollar is the world's reserve currency? And I'm not saying the same thing will happen, but I am saying that you don't need hyperinflation to lose real wealth. The United States has already experienced this on a smaller scale, and the effects were devastating. The 70s. American stagflation, high inflation, combined with slow economic growth. The dollar lost more than half its purchasing power in that decade. Those with savings were silently destroyed. Those with real estate fared better. Those with gold prospered. Those with only a salary and a bank account lost out without realizing it. And the most revealing thing of all, a large part of the people who lived through the 70s didn't realize what was happening in real time. They realized it when it was too late. When they looked back and saw that the retirement they had planned didn't buy what they expected, that the security they thought they had built was much less than the numbers suggested. That's the cruelty of inflation. It doesn't warn you. It simply erodes you, month after month, year after year, until you look at the total and realize that real purchasing power has shrunk drastically while you were too busy working to notice. The system relies on your distraction. It relies on you looking at the nominal number and feeling good enough not to question it. Because the moment you question it, the moment you understand the real mechanism, you stop being a passive victim and start making different decisions. And it's about these decisions that we're going to talk about now. There is no magic formula. There is no investment that guarantees total protection against inflation in any scenario. Anyone who sells you absolute certainty is lying. But there are principles that have spanned decades of economic history and remain relevant today. First principle: understand the difference between real assets and paper promises. Money in a bank account is a promise. The real value of that number depends on the purchasing power of the dollar. And as you already know, that purchasing power can silently shrink while the number remains the same. Real assets are things that have value, regardless of what any government decides to do with the currency. Productive real estate, commodities, equity in companies that sell what people need to buy, regardless of the economic situation. Precious metals that, throughout 5,000 years of human history, have maintained relevance as a store of value. Second principle: real diversification. And pay attention, because real diversification is different from what most people practice. Owning shares in 10 different companies is not real diversification. If they all depend on the same macroeconomic conditions, real diversification means exposure to asset classes that behave differently in different scenarios. Something that rises when inflation accelerates. Something that protects when the market falls. Something that generates income independent of price appreciation. Something that maintains value outside the traditional banking system. Third principle: beware of euphoria. The most dangerous moments in the markets are not those of panic. They are those of euphoria. It was during the euphoria of 1999 that millions of Americans put their life savings into the stocks of companies with no profit whatsoever, and they lost everything in 2000. It was during the housing euphoria of 2006 that families took out mortgages they couldn't afford, and they lost their homes in 2008. Euphoria has a very powerful emotional logic. When everyone around you is making money, when the headlines celebrate records, the impulse to get in is almost irresistible. But it is precisely at this moment that discipline is worth more than any technical analysis. Warren Buffett sums it up better than any lengthy explanation. Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. Simple to understand, brutally difficult to execute. But it is this ability to go against the emotional instinct of the crowd that separates those who build real wealth from those who merely participate in bubbles and end up with losses. Fourth principle, don't confuse speed with direction. Many people are moving very fast financially, working longer hours, taking on side jobs, trying to increase their income, and that's admirable. But if you're running in the wrong direction, speed only takes you further from your destination. Before working harder, ask yourself if what you're building is actually growing in terms of real purchasing power. Before investing more, ask yourself if you understand what you're buying and why. Clarity before speed. Direction before acceleration. Understanding before action. You have more control than the system wants you to believe. But that control begins with awareness. And awareness begins precisely with conversations like this one. Fifth principle, build income, not just wealth. There's a huge difference between having assets that are worth a lot and having assets that generate cash flow. A property you rent out generates income, regardless of whether the market goes up or down. Shares of companies that pay consistent dividends generate income, even when the share price fluctuates. This passive income is what truly buys freedom, not the number on the screen, not the appreciation on paper. The money that comes in every month, regardless of what the market decides to do. This is the ultimate goal of any serious financial strategy. To build income streams that work while you sleep, while you travel, while you age. Because retirement isn't a number. It's a monthly income that sustains the life you want to live. So let's wrap up with what really matters. The inflation hoax is not a conspiracy theory. It's not the exaggeration of a pessimistic economist. It's a real, documented, historical mechanism that operates silently on the assets of those who don't pay attention, and it operates with even greater force on those who need protection the most. The middle-class family, the worker who has spent decades building security, the young person trying to start a business in an environment where everything costs more than it did when their parents were at the same stage of life. You're not imagining that life has become more expensive. You're not being dramatic when you feel your salary doesn't stretch to the end of the month. And you're not wrong when you look at the dream of owning your own home and feel it has become more distant, even though you're working more than before. This is real. And you're not alone in this fight. Because ultimately, the greatest asset you can have in an inflationary environment isn't gold. It isn't real estate. It isn't stocks. It's knowledge. It's the ability to understand what's happening before most people do. It's knowing how to distinguish between what the system wants you to believe and what the numbers actually show. That's the difference. That no inflation can erode. But knowing that the system is unfair isn't enough. Outrage without strategy is wasted energy. What changes your situation isn't just understanding that the game is unbalanced. It's learning to play better within it while you can, and at the same time building defenses that reduce how much this imbalance affects you. Don't be fooled by the inflation hoax. Don't confuse growing numbers with growing wealth. Don't let market euphoria lead you to enter at the wrong time. Don't let fear paralyze you when action would be the right move. And above all, don't let the system convince you that you lack the capacity to understand these things. Because you do. You just proved it now. Comment below which cost has weighed most heavily on your budget over the last 2 years. Rent? Groceries? Electricity? Healthcare? Tell me what you're experiencing in practice. Because this channel isn't just about economic theory. It's about the real lives of real people trying to build something solid in a system that rarely works in favor of those who need it most. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to that friend who still thinks the number in their bank account is all that matters. Send it to that family member who is planning their retirement without considering the real impact of inflation. Information that stays with you only protects you. Information that spreads begins to change conversations. And conversations change decisions. and decisions change lives. Leave a like if you've made it this far. This tells the algorithm that this type of content deserves to reach more people. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Because every week, we bring you a new, direct, and straightforward conversation about money, economics, and what you can do concretely to build real financial security in a world that changes faster than most people can keep up with. And before you leave, watch the video that's playing on the screen right now. It directly complements what we discussed today and will give you the next practical step on this journey. Don't skip it. It was made to continue exactly where this conversation left off. Until the next video, clarity before speed. Always.